Hi, today I am going to discuss about payment certification process in FIDIC 99. I am going to go through the clauses, and while going through the clauses, I will discuss the differences between FIDIC 87 versus FIDIC 99. This discussion cannot be completed in one video, therefore this will be a series of discussions, and as part 1 of this series, I'm going to give you an introduction to the clause 14, and then in next videos we will go by each clause of FIDIC 99. In FIDIC 1999, clause 14 is the one deals with payment certification, and the clause 14 covers all the aspects of payment, final payment certificate, and the discharge and cessation of employer's liability. All these are discussed in clause 14. Now let's see what's in clause 14. This is a summary of clause 14, and you should note that this is not the exact wordings in clause 14, but I'm giving you the meaning of what clause says. And first point is, the clause says this is a remeasurement contract, and also it says BOQ quantities are estimated quantities, and there is a provision for an advance payment to be made to the contract, and also monthly payment applications provision is there, and the payment application should be supported by documents and a report on progress. And also clause mentioned about minimum amount as set out in the appendix to tender. That minimum amount is for the payment, and the payment certification should be more than the minimum amount stated in the appendix to tender. And also clause says engineer has 28 days to issue an interim payment certificate, and engineer should fairly determine the amount to be due. Employer has an obligation to pay the amount certified. If payment is not received, the contractor can claim financing charges compounded monthly. %50 of the retention money is to be paid when the taking over certificate is issued. Where there are sections, then a proportion is paid. The balance of retention money is paid on the expiry of the latest defect notification period, or where there are sections, a proportion at the expiry of the defects notification period for that section. Within 84 days of receiving the taking over certificate, the contractor should submit a statement at completion. This must include an estimate of all sums which the contractor considers due. Within 56 days of receiving a performance certificate, the contractor should submit a final statement. The contractor must also submit with the final statement a written discharge. That written discharge confirms that the total of the final statement represent full and final settlement of all monies due. The engineer then issue to the employer a final payment certificate. The employer shall have no liability to the contractor except to the extent that the contractor has included an amount expressly for that matter in that final statement and also the statement at completion. This diagram you can find in FIDIC 1999. It explains the payment certification process, and you can see it's divided into two parts. The top part is given for each of the monthly or interim payments, and the bottom part is for the final payment. And the top part starts with the milestone contractor submits statement to the engineer. And then the second milestone is engineer issues interim payment certificate to the employer. And you can see that the engineer has to issue the interim payment certificate within 28 days from the submission. And the third milestone is employer makes the payment to the contractor. And you can see that it's 56 days from the submission, and that 56 days is not from the engineer's certification. Employer has to make the payment to the contractor from within 56 days from the submission. And then the bottom part is the final payment. And the first milestone is contractor submits draft final statement to the engineer. And then engineer verifies statement, contractor submits information. And the second milestone is contractor submits final statement and the discharge letter. And you can see that there is no time duration for engineer to do that verification or the contractor to submit information. And the third milestone is engineer issues final payment certificate. And for that, engineer has to do the final payment certification within 28 days of the submission of final statement, not the draft final statement. And the third milestone is employer makes payment, and employer has to make the payment within 56 days from the engineer's certification. And in the case of final payment, employer has 56 days from the engineer's certification. So in monthly payments, the employer has to make the payment within 56 days from the submission, but in final payment, engineer has to make the certificate, and within 56 days from the certificate, employer has to make the payment. And this is the summary of clause 14 in FIDIC 1999. Now let's go into clause by clause and discuss about clause 14 in FIDIC 1999.